It's starting to get towards fall up here in the Lake Superior country, and there's so many projects that need to be done. I'd like to get a well in. I'd like to build a couple outhouses. I have a couple friends a few miles away that are building a cabin, and they'd like to get it done before the snow falls. So come along with me and we'll see how much we can get done and yet still find time to relax. My name's Dave Whipple. You're watching Bush Radical. Well, it's October in the Lake Superior country, and I've got a lot of things I'd like to get done before it snows. I need to saw up enough lumber to build another outhouse. I have another well I need to put in. I've got some friends about 7 miles away as the crow flies, and they're trying to build a cabin before the end of the year. So I'm going to go help them with that too. Hopefully the weather holds out to get everything knocked out that all of us want to get done. First things first though, I need to get filled up with water because I'm going to be here for a couple weeks. Go down and make sure that the old well works and fill every container I've got. Now this well is in a terrible place. It's down a very steep hill. So any water I get, I always got to carry it back up the steep hill. But on the other hand, it was very easy to put this well in and the water is perfect. So hopefully, if I do get a chance to put a well in at the red cabin, which is my plan, hopefully I'll have the same kind of luck. Fingers crossed. Being that I got here fairly late in the day, I'm not going to get too busy this afternoon. I'm going to heat up some water and clean out the well pipe that I brought. And eat this gigantic barrel of cheese balls I got from Menards for $6. Oh yeah. You can't go wrong with the economy size barrel of cheese balls. So the idea is I need to put another well in at the red cabin. Red cabin has no water, has no outhouse. So if you need to use the outhouse, it's like a 10-minute walk. And sometimes you can't make a 10-minute walk. It's too far. But the first thing you need to do to put in a well is not to drive the well point and the well pipe. It's to clean the well point and the well pipe. Because when it comes from the foundry, it's just covered in oil. The inside of the pipe is. And the threads on the end of the pipe, when they cut those on a thread cutting machine, they're using a cutting oil. Basically like a really thin, nasty, disgusting tasting oil that helps to lubricate the little cutting bit to cut the threads in. All of this has to be cleaned off. Otherwise, you're going to taste it in your water. Now, if you drove a well and you put an electric pump on it and you pumped 1,000 gallons through the well, you're probably going to clean it out pretty good. But if you're driving a well that's going to have a hand pump on the top and you're getting it out a gallon at a time, you might end up tasting that oily residue in perpetuity, and we can't have that. So before the sun goes down today, I'm going to take a little bit of time and I'm going to clean up this pipe.
Not only dirt and oil on it, there's little chips of metal in there.
Now chances are you put a well together and run some water through it, all these little chips of metal, they're going to work their way down to the very bottom of the well point, and they're not going to be a problem. But let me show you here in just a second how much metal chips we're talking about. Because it's not a little bit, it's quite a lot. Now the brush I'm using is just a bottle brush from the dollar store and a chunk of PEX tubing. But it works really good to clean these pipes out. I'm going to do the same thing with the well drive point. Then we're going to take a look at everything that's come out of the pipe and out of the point. I'm going to pour the water off, so hopefully not to lose any of the particulates. Feels like a pan for gold. There's some plastic. Wow, look at all that trash that came out of the pipe. That's impressively gross. There's a whole pile of it down there.
All of these shavings and cuttings and metal flakes, all of that stuff is in that pipe.
Another thing I can hopefully get done before the sun goes down is find myself a cuttable tree. I need to cut enough lumber to make 2 outhouses, and I need to find a tree that I don't love that can be cut down and used for saw logs. And I think I have just the right tree. I found one right out on the open trail, and it's going to be super easy to get to. It's only about 30 feet tall, and the top of it's dead, but the tree itself is quite solid. So I ran out and I cut that tree down. Now I'm going to grab my homemade log cart, and we're going to go start yarding some of these logs over to the sawmill. First thing I need to do is stop at the outhouse and grab some measurements. I'd like to build the other outhouses I need the same exact size because it's a good design. And I don't want to cut my logs too long and end up burning up good log by having 8-foot material when all I need is 7 foot. This white pine log is going to be absolutely perfect. I should be able to get 3 saw logs out of it. And those saw logs should be enough to get me all the 1x boards I'm going to need. I also stopped at a pawn shop in Gaylord, Michigan on the way up, and I bought this little Echo chainsaw for just over $100. The honest truth is, the older I get, the more I like the smallest saws I can find. They're light and they're just fun to run. And it's nice to have a cheap, affordable, reliable chainsaw that I can just stuff under the cabin and leave up here. So I don't have to remember to bring one when I come up. A couple of these logs are pretty nice. Some of them are pretty knotty, but they're going to do just fine. Now this log cart is pretty ghetto, but I tell you what, it's been about the perfect thing to have. Doesn't take up any space, it's quite narrow, doesn't weigh anything. I don't think it weighs 40 pounds. A couple wheelbarrow tires and a piece of 1/2-inch round stock to mount the tires on, a 2x6, some plywood. I think it's got nails in it. You know, it's really ghetto. But it works really nice, as long as you can lift the log up and set it on the cart.
I had to stop for this little guy. He's right in the middle of the trail. How's it going, buddy? Yes, you are the best, aren't you? Yes, you're a good boy. You're a good boy. What an awesome little dude. This guy's jacked too. Check out these big guns. Get going. Get out of the trail. Come on, get out of the trail. Get going. Come on. I'll just move you to right here. There you go. Good man.
One more log to go and I'll have all the logs I need. But this last one is pretty solid. And I'm not looking forward to putting it up on the cart. I don't know what it weighs, but it weighs a lot more than I do. I always look forward to cutting some lumber when I'm up here. It's nice to run a sawmill when you're not going to be spending an entire day running a sawmill. You're just going to throw a log on, buzz it up. That's pretty enjoyable. I got to replace a little bit of water drip tubing on this mill. It's kind of fallen apart on me over the last couple of years. The original hose for the water drip system on this sawmill, I haven't been able to find a hose that's exactly the same. I've seen some that look about the same with that inner braided style hose, but I don't think that makes any difference. The Wood-Mizer sawmill I have, it just has a clear plastic tubing hose and it works just fine. And that braided hose is kind of dry rotted on me. So I just replaced it with the cheapest thing I could find that's going to run water. All right, let's try not to blow the back out. I'm going to be up here for about 2 weeks, and I think I've done about as much as I want to do for today. I got the logs cut. I got a nice log up on the mill. I got the water fixed, gas tanks topped off, and I'm ready to saw logs. I just got to run back to the cabin and fill up some water and spend the rest of the afternoon staring into the woods. My favorite part. In the morning, I filled up both of my water jugs, put a giant dent in my barrel of cheese balls, and got ready for a long morning of sawing logs. Every sawmill out there runs water to cool the blade and to lubricate the blade and to keep pitch from building up on it. And some guys will use diesel fuel for that lubricant. And that's just disgusting. I can't even imagine running a sawmill with diesel fuel just dripping all over my wood. So I just run Dawn dish soap and water. It's not great, but it's not bad. And it's definitely not diesel fuel all over everything. Now, green white pine is difficult to cut with a bandsaw mill. The blade kind of wants to float up and down. The sawdust is real gummy and it gums up the wheels of the mill and makes it kind of ride over little bumps of sawdust that are packed into the wheels. It's kind of a pain in the neck. Back in the woods behind the sawmill, I had a nice standing dead tree. Not too big. So I used it to cut a couple log rollers. Now you can see on the other side of that mill, I have a tarp laid down to catch all the sawdust. When I'm done sawing for the day, I just bundle it up like a big gunny sack, take it to the edge of the drop off. You can see in the background there's kind of a bright spot in the woods. That's a drop off. It's like 30 feet. And I just spread the sawdust down the hill and it just biodegrades. It's a good place to put it so you don't end up with a gigantic stack of sawdust. Just turn it into mulch. For anybody out there that wants to get into running a sawmill, having your own little hobby mill, the first thing you need to think about is what are you going to do with all the scrap? Because it becomes a problem quick. Check this out. I just found this guy in the ferns. I was sitting around the fire. It's a giant water beetle, commonly known as a toe biter. I haven't seen one of these things in years and years. You can see this guy is not happy. See that beak he's got? It's called a proboscis. And it basically injects an enzyme which breaks down your muscle tissue. So, I mean, he's like the hawk of death of the bug world. Just a monster of a bug. I'm going to go let this guy go. I put him back outside. This is an absolutely massive bug. And these things, they fly, they swim, these things eat fish. It's just an incredible monster of a bug. So like you're sleeping outside, you're having a good time. This guy is coming right into your sleeping bag and you don't even know it. And then he bites you and literally like you just fall apart. I don't think he likes being followed. Now that I've got all the lumber cut for the outhouses, I stacked it up and it's just going to sit there and dry, at least for a few days. Right now what I want to do is a project I've been meaning to knock out for a long time. Boy, I sound like a broken record. I say that all the time. My life is completely full of unfinished projects. But one thing I have wanted to get done is to trim out the gable end of this cabin and make it look beautiful. And what I'm going to use for that is a bundle of sawn cedar shingles. Probably not going to take a whole bundle even. Got some construction adhesive, got the brad nailer, got a saw, a generator, and I'm pretty much ready to rock and roll. Now, I've always loved the look of cedar shake shingles. Not only that, the cabin that this one was patterned from, the very first one I built 25 years ago, it also had cedar shingles in the gable. And seeing how this cabin is just a modern replica of my first cabin, even with a tree growing up through the deck, like the first cabin, I figured it was only fitting to use these shingles. Also, we had the shingles already. Brooke had bought a whole bunch of shingles, and they've been stored in our storage shed. So I didn't even have to go hunt them down. They were right there on hand. It's going to be a lot easier this time around to put shingles up because I'm not using a ladder. I'm using scaffolding, and I'm using an air nailer, and I'm using glue, and everything's going to go pretty smooth. The only thing that takes just a minute at a time is getting those first cuts right. Once the first cuts are right, well, you could just go for it. Didn't take long to wrap this project up, but this little brad nailer and a little tiny air compressor, and of course working off of scaffolding, because extension ladders are the devil. You're never going to catch me on one. And I think it turned out absolutely beautiful. That cedar shingle sure does add a lot of character. There's a lot of depth to it. Just warm looking. This cabin's a bit of a hodgepodge because, of course, I have no taste, but I think that gable turned out nice. Now it's time to go on to our well. I've wanted a well at this cabin for quite a while. It would make the cabin complete, having a source of water close by. Problem is, the ground's fairly high here, and if you walk, 150 yards to the south, there's a big drop-off where you start getting down by the river. And that drop-off's probably 30 feet, and that's a long way down. So I'm worried that my water table is going to be quite a ways down at this site. But there's really no way to know until we get some pipe in the ground and see what we got.
8 foot, no water yet. Well, there's good news and there's bad news. The good news is I hit water. The bad news is it's about 17 feet down, so by the time I drive the point down another 2 feet, the well to the water column is going to be 20 feet, and that's getting pretty close to the max. The well is not pulling the water. And when you push down the handle on the well, it wants to pull the handle back up. And that tells me that the check valve at the bottom of the pump isn't closing properly, because it's pulling up the water column, and then the water column is wanting to fall back down, and that pulls that handle back up. So we're going to open this pump up, see what's going on. Well, this looks just fine. This is the check valve. So when the water's pulled up, this will open, and then it'll shut back down and seal that spot. Let's take a look. Oh, good grief. Well, son of a gun, look at that. There is a great big gouge. I don't know if that's in the paint only, or if it's in actually, or if it's actually in the casting. But you can see that's obviously why it's not sealing up. Now I could probably sand all of this paint off of there. And if that gouge wasn't into the steel itself, if it was just in this paint coating, it would probably be fine. My goodness. You can see in this leather check valve, there's this whole section here where it's just all marred up, or it's sucked down onto that gouge. So this is going back to Menards, and I'm just gonna have to get another one. Just put a bucket over top of the pipe for now. Just throw that pump back there. Well, we're gonna have to take a ride back downstate and exchange that pump. And before we come back up, we're definitely going to tear that pump apart and make sure that the new one isn't defective too.
So I went back down south and got a new pump, and I brought the old one back up also, and did a little bit of work to it. But before I got back to the well, I spent 4 days helping some friends put together a cabin on their property, not too far away. It was really nice for a change, just to kind of unplug, not film the process, but just be a carpenter. Just be on the job, making the cuts, putting stuff together. Kent and his brother-in-law Brian and I built this cabin in about 3.5 days. We had one day it was pretty rainy, and we had one day that wasn't quite a full day. But it went just as smooth as butter, not a problem. In the beautiful, beautiful weather. We had the absolute perfect weather to get this place done. Kent's wife Jill runs the channel on YouTube, Ask a Vet Tech. If you've got pets and love your pets and want to make sure they're healthy and happy, and you've got questions, Jill has a ton of videos that cover so many of the very common questions people have regarding different issues they have with their pets and the health of their pets. Jill's also getting some great shots running the camera for me as I'm up on the roof. Thanks, Jill. Brian, Kent, and I were actually a really good, smooth, efficient crew putting this together. We didn't work too hard, and we definitely took time for stories and BS, but we had a good time, and it was a pretty smooth build.
That's it.
Once Jill and Kent's cabin was all framed in and roofed, it was time to get back to the well and see if there's anything I can do to salvage this project. I bought a new well pump, and I brought the old one back with a little bit of doctoring. Let me show you what I did.
Now what I did with this pump is I took all of that heavy powder coating off here with the chisel and I sanded it down with sandpaper because there was that huge valley, this huge groove, but it just seemed to be in only the powder coating. The check valve looks fine, that it's a bit off center. Oh, no wonder it's loose.
So I think we should be in good shape at this point. This well should seal up just fine. The check valve should seal up and hold the water column up and keep it from dropping back down. Only one way to find out, and that's to throw the pump on here and see what we got. Now I topped that pump off with water, and I'm going to give it a little bit of time for those seals and gaskets to swell up. In the back of my truck, I have a trash can full of sardines. Who can say that? The trash can is for the cabin. The sardines, of course, are delicious. I like the Louisiana hot sauce ones. While I'm waiting for those gaskets to swell back up, I'm going to take a little bit of time and dial in a few little projects here in the cabin. I have to install a downspout on my sink. Now, I'm either going to use a bucket for this or I'll maybe eventually plumb it into a gray water drain. I'm not sure, but this downspout is something that's needed to happen for a while. Last night was really chilly, so the inside of this cabin is about 20 degrees colder than it is outside. Let's give the pump a try. Make sure it's topped off with water, and we'll see what we got. Well, to let you guys in on a little secret, I pumped this thing and pumped it, and I pumped it and pumped it and pumped it and filled it and pumped it, and it just felt like it was completely locked, like it didn't want to pull anything up at all, like you were pressurizing the casing. And I've seen this before. Chad Maynard from the channel 9 to 5 to Life, we did a well at his place, and he did half a dozen of them. The problem was he was down in clay, and I think that's my problem. So I pulled the pump up a little bit, and I gave it a little while to sit, and I went back inside to do more projects. One thing I've got to do is stock this cabin. So there's some paper plates, very classy. Here's some plastic bowls from the dollar store, plastic plates. Man, these set me back, I think, $2 a set. So that's like 50 cents a piece. I don't know what the world's coming to with the prices we got to pay nowadays. But I mean, look at this high class china. Done deal. Also at the dollar store, I got these 4 packs of silverware, spoons, knives, and forks. And they were like $1.50 a piece. They'll do just fine. I need something elegant, though. Something to put them in to where it's just very, decorative. This coffee cup will work. Now for some high-end dishware. These coffee cups were 4 for $3.50. Again at the dollar store. Imagine that. And boy, they are beautiful. These are the kind you'd find in the finest greasy spoons, dive motels, that sort of thing. There's nothing better to hang up your cheap dollar store coffee cups than galvanized nails. I'm using this 1x4 to make sure all my nails are in a row. And what a beautiful job. So you don't got to be fancy to be fancy. Lovely.
Hey, look who's here. Booster. Postman. How's it going, buddy? And the big Hank. And the cookie. Come on here, big guy. Good man. That's a good boy.
I'm letting my lumber dry to build the outhouses, but the old outhouse, right back there in the woods, it's been blocked by a giant spruce tree that fell down right in this walkway. You can see like this path that runs through the woods. An 80-foot spruce tree fell right in that hole, and it basically made it impossible to walk through the woods. So I decided the best thing to do with the evening was to burn it all up. There was enough branches that needed to be burned. I decided to set 2 fires, which is unusual. But it took me hours with 2 fires to get rid of it.
So it don't look like that well's gonna work. When I got down into water, I punched it a bit farther and it's not pulling anything. When you stick the tape down there, the last 6 inches of the pipe's nothing but clay. You can feel it oozing down as you push the tape down. When you pull the tape out, it's got clay all over the end of it.
What are you going to do? 7:30 in the morning the next day, I was up packing, ready to head out. Got a couple projects done and got defeated on a couple other ones.
Well, I had a list of things I wanted to do, and I didn't manage to get but a couple of them done. Got the gable trimmed in with all the cedar shingles. Got some wood cut for an outhouse. I planned on cutting enough for 2 and building 2. I got to go over and help some friends build their cabin, but I never got an outhouse built. And when I did try to put the well in, I ran into a bunch of clay and it wouldn't pull any water. So I suppose, it is what it is. Plans are just that, aren't they? They're just plans. You never get everything done the way you plan to do it. You just do what you can with the time you've got. Thank you guys so much for hanging out with me. My name's Dave Whipple. You've been watching Bush Radical. Be radical, eh? See you soon.